Good evening. Call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Kolpak. Here. Pepcorn.
Here.
Preston. Here. Strand.
Here.
Mahoney.
Here. Library. Beginning yoga sessions for adults are Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. through the summer at the Carlson Library. The Fargo Historic Hunt continues through August 5th and features 12 historic buildings in downtown Fargo. Maps are available at all 3 library locations. The annual Summer Reading Challenge runs through August 26th, and many engaging programs and activity are planned. Participants can keep track of their reading over the summer to be eligible to win prizes. I, among many others, was shocked to learn the news Sunday that Fargo Marathon Director Mark Knutson had died in a bicycle crash in Detroit Lakes. This is an enormous loss for the community. Mark worked tirelessly to make Fargo Marathon a reality, and he was looking forward to next year's 20th anniversary. In a statement from the Fargo Marathon staff, it said, in part, that Mark's warm and genuine nature endeared him to all those who had the privilege of meeting him, and his kindness, drive, and passion were evident to everybody he encountered. Those words are so true. Denny Wallaker and I had the privilege of knowing Mark and attending many Fargo Marathon events over the years. I was able to see firsthand what Mark and his team had accomplished, and it was very remarkable for our community. He truly will be missed. In honor of Mark, I'd like to just observe a moment of silence for somebody who contributed so much to our community. Thank you. On June 20th, the Fargo Fire Department hosted the groundbreaking ceremony for the new fire station number 8. This station, located at 6617 33th Street South, is expected to be completed in late 2024. Being future-focused, responsive, and proactive are the keys to being a regional leader, and Fargo was proud to break ground on this facility in service of our residents. It will help decrease response times in a growing south side of Fargo, while also providing up-to-date firefighting gear and technology. Let's watch the short video of this event.
So by building this station, we're going to decrease our response times in this area. This will result in better service to all of the citizens that live here in this area. In the past 5 years in this planning zone, there's been approximately 1,897 calls for service. And we respond to 90% of all those calls in 10 minutes and 46 seconds. And that's not acceptable by our standards. Our goal is to respond to every emergency in every planning zone in 6 minutes and 20 seconds or less. So this station and this investment is going to help us reach that goal.
Public safety is at the core of our responsibility to our citizens, and today we continue showcasing the investment and the commitment. We have talked about this for a long time, and I'm very pleased now it's a reality.
We take our responsibility to work on their home where they work and live during their shifts very serious and try to make that as safe as we possibly can.
Fire station number 8 will feature positive pressure gear storage and a decontamination area to bolster the safety features available to our team. It will be equipped with the latest technology and equipment and improving the overall efficiency and effectiveness of the fire department operations. To hire the best, you need to build the best. I'm proud of this plan and believe it will help us recruit and retain the next generations of firefighters for decades to come.
When are they going to start building that, Denise? Pretty soon?
They have started.
Oh, good. Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the June 26, 2023 regular meeting and the June 28, 2023 special meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 34?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additions or corrections? Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Colpack,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. President comments. Edward Kotowski? Am I close, Ed, or? Okay, you can correct it.
It's fine.
Okay.
So my name is Edward Christosik. I'm a resident of South Fargo, and I'm actually probably one of the reasons why you all had a special commission meeting on the 28th in which you unanimously voted to basically sue the state of North Dakota, ultimately suing yourselves over House Bill 1340. And I really only have one question, and that is, what do you expect to accomplish? I have heard many arguments come out of this commission from, do we want guns in our neighborhood? It's not appropriate. And there's this misguided belief that somehow or another, if you pass this thing, you're going to make neighborhoods more safe. And quite honestly, that's a bunch of rubbish. The guns are already in your neighborhoods, and they are owned by private citizens, not federally licensed dealers. And all that aside, even if I didn't have my FFL license, I'm still going to own firearms, as are a lot of my neighbors, as is everybody in this room's neighbors who own guns, even the black scary ones that nobody likes. The little tidbit of information that I don't think anybody knows, as a federally licensed dealer, I have 2 addresses on my license. The first address is my premise location, which according to the city of Fargo has to be in a commercially zoned location, and it is. My second address is my mailing address. Guess what? According to the federal government and the ATF, I do not have to have guns shipped to or stored in my premise location. And I'm here to tell you, they're not. The only thing I have to do at my premise location is have the customer fill out the form 4473, do the FBI background check, collect my fee, and send them on their merry way. So even if you win this lawsuit, you are accomplishing nothing. You're doing 2 things. You thumb your nose at the state saying I'm the big kid at the table and I don't have to follow your rules, and you wasted taxpayer dollars. And quite honestly, I'm a little shocked that we can sit here and say this is judicious use of taxpayer dollars, because you're not solving a problem. You're chasing a problem that simply doesn't exist. As always, if you ever have questions, I'm more than happy to sit down and discuss them with you, and thanks for your time.
We're a little early for public hearing, so we'll go to item 41. Change order for the additional services of Barry Dunn for implementation and project management of the new enterprise resource planning accounting system. Susan Thompson to explain.
Good evening,
I
Mayor.
got 3 explanations, okay?
Coming full force tonight.
Okay.
So I'm going to cover this is going to be an update on the ERP system. I'll cover the historical background on how things got to this point, get us current on that, and identify some of the issues that we've dealt with. Jill will cover the RFP process that we've been going on and the selection process. And then Susan will cover how we're going to plan on paying for it. So if you can look at the slide, you see our current system is Central Square. We put this system in, it was bought in 95, 96, went live in 98. At that time, it went on an IBM AS400 platform. We replaced that platform about every 5 years. So it went from an AS400 to an IBM Series I, then it went to an IBM i5, then to a System I, and now it's an IBM I platform. And the software we initially bought was called HTE. And that was bought by SunGard. So it was SunGard HTE, then it became SunGard, then it was bought by Superion. And then 5 years ago, Superion merged with Triton and Tritech and became Central Square. And it's been Central Square for the last 5 years. So the accounting system we've been using, or the time and attendance system, I should say, is Kronos. It's on-premise here. We've been using that for around 7 or 8 years. in 2020, Kronos merged with the Ultimate Group, or Ultimate Software, and became UKG. Ultimate Kronos Group is what that's short for. In that time, now they've moved their systems all to the hosted systems. So the present system we have is going to have end of engineering happen at the end of 2025, and then a year and a quarter later, in March of 2027, it's going to end of life that software, so we can no longer use it after that point in time. So based on that, you can understand we're using legacy systems. You can see what the interface looks like for the Central Square software there on the screen. It's not a GUI interface. There is a GUI that we can use, but it doesn't work that well. So natively, that's the screen, and that's what probably 90% of my users use, is that screen for efficiency purposes. So we talked a little bit about the problems that we've had, and there's a large number of problems using the older legacy system. Things that the new system will have will be a dashboard. Dashboard, you'll see a picture in one of the later slides, but basically you can identify what information in that system is important to you, and that'll become your screen that you're looking at, and will contain current information that is pertinent to whatever you want. It's configurable to whatever your particular needs are. And reporting on the old system, on our present system, is challenging, to say the least. There's no automation capabilities that are, typical for current software systems. We'll get that. We'll get approval processes via that automation system. We'll get portals for the employees, vendors, and just make sure the software works in a unified manner is our goal. So we recognize that this was a problem years ago, and Jill will review the timeline on the whole RFP process.
All right, thank you, Ron. So we put out the request for proposal, or RFP, for a consultant back in 2021, and Barry Dunn was ultimately selected. In 22, the eval team convened, and that consists of 8 members from IS, HR, and finance. So that's been a great collaborative effort. Also in 22, we put out then the RFP for ERP services and got a response from 8 companies. That was narrowed down to 3 that were selected for demos. So each of those 3 vendors did a 3-day on-site demo and interview with the evaluation team, as well as just other users throughout the city were invited for those demos too. And then just in June, the evaluation team did reference checks as well with other cities who have worked with Tyler. So the recommended provider is Tyler Technologies. Finance and HR systems would be the primary systems that will be under the new ERP. There's strong functionality built within the system. I should mention we had all of the participants in those demos do reviews as well of the vendors. And so between the evaluation team and just users that participated, there were a lot of good feedback internally, and again, those references were positive too from other cities. Their sole focus is government, and they are about half the cost of the second choice vendor. As Ron mentioned, the other component to this project is UKG Dimensions. Because of that end of life of the current system that we're using, we do need to upgrade. And with the current provider, those integrations should go very well. They've worked with UKG before, and as you know, UKG is considered a best in class for timekeeping systems, and again, should integrate very well with Tyler. So I'm going to turn it over to Susan to talk about the financial aspect.
Thanks, Jill. Before I get into the financials, I just want to clarify what our suggested motion is, that we're asking you to take action to direct us to move forward on the contract with Tyler and UKG, authorize the funding expenditures, and then we're also asking for a change order so that we can continue to work with Barry Dunn. As we did our demos and reference checks, it was very obvious that a lot of staffing and planning is going to be needed, and we believe we need Barry Dunn's assistance to help us with that. Regarding the financing, first of all, as you can see, this is a multi-department project. There are 3 of us up here, but really this is going to touch every department in the city. The timekeeping and the financials, you know, we had a lot of different staff from other departments sit in on the demos and weigh in on their choices. So I'm prefacing that before we talk about the cost. We do have in the packet a more detailed kind of schedule of the costs, but this slide just highlights. There's kind of 2 components. We have the one-time setup conversion costs, and then there's some annual costs. And what we attempted to capture in the schedule is really all the things that we're asking for: the ERP, the timekeeping system, some incidentals, including Barry Dunn, and also the contingency. So we're proposing that we would fund the one-time setup costs through some ARP funds that were set up. As Ron mentioned, you know, we've been looking towards this process for several years. That amount of money was set up as a placeholder. We didn't know what it was going to cost. So I think we all knew that it wasn't going to be enough. And then the other would be debt funded or some sort of borrowing, not cash funded, basically. This is a long-lived asset. We're hoping it lasts another 25 years like the other system did. And then the annual expenditures will be roughly $500,000 a year for the different maintenance agreements for the ARP and timekeeping subscriptions, basically. And then those will be budgeted annually through the budget process.
Any questions, commissioners?
Is there a timeline one also? There should be a timeline slide. Oh, I'm sorry, that was me. I thought someone else was doing that. Okay, the timeline slide, just to give you an idea, so assuming the award is given in July, we would work in the fall to finalize the contracts. We're going to work with them to map a lot of our business processes. That will help with this project, but will also just help for continuity as we get new staff to have those things written down. We'll reconfigure our chart of accounts, develop reporting requirements. You know, those are a lot of the things that we talked about at our meeting at noon, what kind of things we want the reports to look like, converting and testing data and training. Our go live, we're hoping for on or prior to January 1 of 26. If you have any questions, the 3 of us can
Any
help.
questions? Commissioner Kolpak?
Thank you for this update. Can you speak to how you're going to manage the transition to the new platform with internal staff? I know you're also working with the consultant, but it's a big lift anytime to change a major platform like this.
It is. Yes, we are looking for Barry Dunn to help us with sort of the logistics, more of the administration. But yes, we will be using internal staff. That's part of the reason why the go-live date is more towards 2026. I think initially we were looking at 2025 and just thought it would be better with our current workload if we spread that out a little bit and gave everyone a little more time to do all these things, converting 25 years worth of data and training and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioner Weston?
So you talk about a $500,000 or $500,000 annual charge, but when I look at the budget here, I don't see a $500,000 figure. And then my second question is, and maybe this folds into it, the debt payment on the 2.7, does that add into the 500,000?
The debt payment is not in the 500,000. I guess we've not, that's not how we've looked at it in the past, I guess. Depending on how long we finance it, obviously the annual payment would differ. So I guess it depends on if we do 10 years or 20 years. I guess we could do the math. And then the subscription costs are way at the bottom. There isn't anything budgeted for '24 because we will be implementing it. And then it's kind of gradual in year 25, and then they kind of bump up to that $500,000 and kind of average. It goes up gradually over 10 years.
It's just that the sheet has 360, 360, 360
Yeah.
on the subscriptions, and I think on the annual budget, it also has the same numbers as they have at the bottom.
The right one?
So I think that's confusing when you say it's 500 a year.
It's split up between the Tyler. Tyler ranges from 200 to about 450, and then the UKG is 77,000 per year, and I apologize if you didn't get the updated sheet.
Thank you. Any other questions? So we need a motion to approve this proceeding? Is that
Yes,
correct?
please.
Action item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Now we'll go to public hearings. Item 36, hearing on a dangerous building located at 421 15th Avenue North. It was continued from our 6/26/23 regular meeting. Sean Radnick to explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight we're here to take a look at the single-story detached single-stall garage at 421 15th Avenue North. It was built, best we can figure, about 1948, the same time the house was built, and the owner, Don M. Novotny, is here tonight. Taxes are paid and up to date. With this garage, there are a number of factors, and it does meet about 9 out of the 10 criteria that we have for dangerous buildings. It has, the weather barrier is non-existent right now. It's inoperable walk-in doors and overhead doors. Sheathing attachment is bad. Deterioration of materials due to exposure. It's not structurally sound. There's junk items stored in and around it, and there's signs of there was signs of infestation. Here's the timeline of events at this point. There was a permit pulled because there was a fire in 2021, and they were working on the garage. There was some miscommunication, and our team was talking to them, and they gave an approval for an inspection, and apparently they took it as the approval for the building and never called in for the final inspections. So it was missed for a little while in our system, and we revisited it in 2023 here. And since then, we've gotten junk complaints. We've gotten complaints about this building itself. We are pursuing a junk abatement separate from this. So we have gone through, done the walkthroughs. We've talked to the owners and those on site and stuff. And now we're here at the public hearing tonight just to see what you think of it. And here are some pictures as it stands. These pictures were taken today. It's the structure back there with the OSB on it. Here's basically how it stands right now, and the reason why it looks this bad right now is because, as I learned from the owner today, that they're planning on demolishing this themselves and rebuilding. So that's what we're looking at here. This is just some of the debris and stuff in the backyard from the demolition, as well as some other debris and stuff and some junk. Once again, just another picture of the backyard and some of the things inside the garage. And our recommended motion tonight is just to designate it a dangerous building and have it removed by September 8th. And I'll stand for questions.
Is anyone present who wishes to address the City Commission regarding this building?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Can you give your name?
My name is Dawn Hanley.
You guys have it on record still as Don Novotny, but I'm trying to change it, but I just can't seem to get to the right people. So please bear with me. I reside at 421 15th Avenue North, Fargo. I've lived there since February 28th, 2009. Currently, as you can see by the pictures, I really have no words. I'm just gonna read from here so I can concentrate. So, I'm here to provide my side of what is currently going on with my garage that has been deemed a dangerous building. It was deemed a couple different things. I don't fully understand that stuff because, sorry, I'm not in the construction business or fully understand the codes. I recently just met Sean back in, I think it was April or May for the first time. Before this, we did have a fire. Our fire was on November 22nd, 2019. And so then we were rebuilding and repairing. We got the permit. My fiance had done construction in the past, so then he took this on. I didn't have anything to do with any involvement of that stuff. I just let it go, and that's my fault too. But after recently talking with Sean and deemed the dangerous building and stuff, I met with Sean and Bill and another female lady was here, and I met with them and went over things, what has to be done and stuff. So while my fiance Justin had started the process of repairing, he found that there was a shift in the structure. When Sean came out again on the 21st of June for on-site inspection, we thought, or Justin had thought that he was correcting the problem by adding the concrete because it had shifted somehow, whether through year or manipulation of the side of the wall building. So, but then Sean let us know that that wasn't the correct way of doing things. So then that kind of halted that. Since then, and I talked with Sean earlier this evening, and like I said, I don't know anything about codes, but Justin has started taking down the stuff himself, the rafters and the walls, and that's why it looks like those pictures did today, because he was removing this stuff in order to try to fix the foundation or to build the structure better. But I just found out that we need to have a different permit for that, other than the one that's open. So I'm not aware of a normal time frame for garage building assembled by a company, let alone a single person. I'm just asking for time because right now I don't have the financial or the social resources to hire a business or get a group of people in to help. It's just Justin at this point doing it on his own. Yeah, that's all I have to.
Is Justin your son or who's
My
Justin?
fiance.
Fiance, okay, thank you. Anybody else want to speak to this dangerous building? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Sean, what you're asking for now is declare it a dangerous building and then they need to proceed to take it down, is that right?
Yeah, what we're asking for them to do is basically have the demo of the old structure done by September 8th. After that, they can, within that time frame, they can obtain the new permit and build it as they need to. But what we're asking for is that structure that's there now to be demolished. They're already 3/4 of the way there. So it's gonna be pretty good, but we just want to make sure that we have something in place just in case something
And then it
happens.
looks like we have a dumpster out there for them.
That's their dumpster. They rented that on their own to help clean things up.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Strand?
I'd like to know from Ms. Novotny, is this doable, this schedule?
September 8th.
Yes.
I will try to make it doable as much as I can. Right now, like he said, half of it's torn down. I will probably have to take some time off to work to do this, to help out as much as I can too. So.
And if I might, are we hearing from neighbors at all, or is it pretty quiet on that front?
And no, this was brought to us actually because of a complaint from the neighbors, and there have been some complaints.
And if I might bear with me, if I can continue, would a month matter if it was like October versus September? Or?
All we're asking by September is that the structure is down, not that it has to be rebuilt. We're not looking at, that's their timeline. If they want to rebuild, that's going to be their own timeline. All we're looking for is for it to come down and to be safe so that it's not going to collapse. And my worry is that it's going to collapse and hit the house and cause further damage. So the sooner it's down, the better.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Pipkin.
So I'm a North Fargo resident. I drive by this all the time. The front yard is way worse than this. And so I wouldn't appreciate being a neighbor. And this isn't just over a year or 2 years. It's awful. And so to me, you got to start setting some timelines. Otherwise, it'll just continue. So I'm in favor of the motion.
Mr. Preston.
I just have a question. You mentioned a junk abatement. It might be a little bit separate from this issue, but can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, there's some junk accumulation, as you saw in some of the pictures and stuff, that are not related to the building itself. And that's been an issue for our department ongoing. So we do actually have basically 2 inspectors taking care of this right now. One is our code enforcement inspector, who's called in because of junk complaints, and the other one is our building inspector, who's been called in because of the complaints of the building itself. So we're handling it as 2 different things. We didn't want to put them together and then end up taking a bunch of material or something that they need for the garage. So what we want to do is do the junk abatement separately to make sure that we're getting some of the junk and the debris cleared out of there.
Mr. Kopak.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for the report. I certainly support putting a deadline in place. I will remind everyone that it wasn't that long ago that we added an extension to another dangerous building and gave them more time, so it certainly is something that's possible.
Yes.
I understand.
Any other discussion? Public comment is done now. Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Volpak?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Public hearing on 37 continued to 7/24/23 Southwest School Fargo Mission, second edition. This is going to be continued to 7/24. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Pepcorn? Mahoney?
Aye. Number 38, public hearing, annexation of 80.4 acres, more or less located as part of the southwest quarter, section 28, southeast quarter of section 29, and the northeast quarter of section 32, township 140 north, range 49 west of the 5th municipal medium, Cass County, North Dakota. First reading of the annexation ordinance. Donald Crest to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress with the Department of Planning and Development. As the mayor has stated, our first item here is an annexation of an area here. This is 19th Avenue North, 57th Street North. The famous horse park is down here. This area includes an area that looks about like this, which will be the subject of our next agenda item, and also the 2 property owners' properties. They wish to be included in this annexation, and annexation of an area of right-of-way here. That's what this strip going into this side is, down here and down here. And your commission adopted a resolution of annexation for this at your May 30th, 2023 meeting. This is a city-initiated annexation. Here's the close-up of the plat there. The subject area includes right-of-way for both 19th Avenue and 57th Street. Again, this area is designated for industrial and commercial development. The annexation was noticed pursuant to the annexation processed in the North Dakota Century Code. Friday, July 7th, which was last Friday, was the last date for protests. The city auditors confirmed that no protests were received. At their July 6th, 2023 meeting, the Planning Commission found that the proposed annexation is consistent with the growth plan, which is the 2007 growth plan for this area. This is the sufficiency of protests hearing. Again, there are insufficient protests. There have been none. So our recommended motion is stated in the staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentations. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to address the annexation? President wishes to speak. If not, we'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 39, Veterans Industrial Park Addition, approval recommended by Planning Commission 5/2/23, a zoning change from AG Agriculture to Limited Industrial, first reading rezoning ordinance, and a plat of the Veterans Industrial Park Addition. Donald Cress again to explain.
Yes, sir, thank you. So following up on the area that you just recommended annexation for, approved annexation for, this is the area of the Veterans Industrial Park. It's currently zoned, it looks like, this is what it looks like here. We're on the corner here. This is the BNSF Railroad here. Part of the feature of this is that this subdivision could have rail access. And then your 57th Street, 19th Street here, or 19th Avenue here. So this is the railroads over here. You're looking down 57th Street, which at this point is a gravel road. It's unimproved. You see this is just a, oh, hang on, got ahead of myself there. The two residences are behind this tree line. This is looking down 57th. This lift station here was included in the annexation. That's actually a City of West Fargo lift station, but that's, they just own it. It's not part of the City of West Fargo. Here you're looking west on 19th Avenue. This is where 53rd Street on the plat is going to come in, lined up with the Horse Park driveway. And then this is looking diagonally from 19th Avenue northwest across the property, just a view of the property there. Current zoning is agricultural. The proposed zoning is limited industrial, which is consistent with the growth plan designation for this area. Here's the plat showing the newly dedicated 53rd Street and 23rd Avenue. These are dedicated public streets. Here's that same plat oriented with north at the top. The applicant, John Eunice of Eagle Ridge Development, is with us this afternoon and may wish to address the commission. The recommended motion is stated in the staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Donald. Anyone present wish to speak to this change? Anyone present wishing to speak? Not, we'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Move the recommended motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Colpack,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mahoney,
Aye. Item 40, Interstate Business District Addition. Denial recommended by Planning Commission on 6/6/23. Growth plan amendment from residential area lower to medium density commercial and proposed park to industrial and commercial. Zoning change from agriculture and limited industrial conditional overlay and limited industrial conditional overlay, a general commercial with a conditional overlay and public and institutional. First reading of the rezoning ordinance and a plot of the Interstate Business District Addition. Donald Crest to explain.
Thank you, sir. That's a rather lengthy description there of this project. This project is located this is I-29 here. This is 40th Avenue North and 45th Street North. So this area was just recently annexed into the city in March. Your commission approved that annexation. For reference here, this is the city of Riley's Acres, and this area here is part of the Riley's Acres extraterritorial jurisdiction. We'll look at that more closely in a moment. Here are just some, it's a large area, so this is, we're actually on the interstate ramp here. Memory Fireworks is not part of this project, but it extends over here and up to the op construction here on the north. In the distance, you see the residences in the Riley's Acres ETJ. Here we're standing on 40th Avenue North, looking north. This is 45th Street. This is County Drain number 40. This road that the pickup truck is on is a private road that leads to op construction. And so the project will start about here would be the thing. Here's the subdivision plat. The plan is to dedicate 44th Street, which will be a dedicated public street internally. There are two lots here that are not for development. This long, narrow Lot 8 will be dedicated to the Southeast Cass Water Resources District for the protection of Drain 40 and possible future expansion. And then Lot 2 here, Block 1, is going to be a detention basin that the city will be involved with here in acquiring part of that. These lots here are otherwise intended to be developed as commercial lots with general commercial zoning with a conditional overlay. And these lots here are intended to be developed as industrial lots with limited industrial zoning. The growth plan that designation or change that was referred to is the 2007 growth plan designates this as commercial here, residential, and proposed park or open space. The proposal by the applicant is to change this to an industrial designation, and this commercial would stay there. Actually, commercial will probably go up here a little further when we actually, if that growth plan amendment is approved. Just to clarify where all this is a sort of a busy area up here, you might say, commissioners. So this is our subject property here. This is an area that has both the city of Riley's Acres in the gray here. These blue areas on either side are Riley's Acres ETJ. This green on the north is Fargo's ETJ. So there, and then so this is we're sort of interlocking here. And there was an agreement between the city of Fargo and the city of Riley's Acres from 2016 that helped define this area and the responsibilities of this area for both cities, and that is still in force at this time. So that's where this ETJ comes from. Looking at a big picture of the growth plan here, again, here's our subject property. Here's the Riley's Acres ETJ. The current growth plan designation for areas north of here is a residential area, single dwelling residential, as well as this area here is NDSU. They use it as a part of their research facility, as you probably know. So just to clarify where everything is on this. Again, the zoning here is ag. The proposed zoning is commercial, public institutional for the government-owned lots and limited industrial. We have a graphic of that here. The blue are the limited industrial lots. The sort of peach color here are the general commercial, and the two green ones are the public and institutional. There have been a number of meetings for this one since there was a growth plan amendment pursuant to our ordinance. There was a growth plan meeting before this went to the Planning Commission originally on April 20th, 2023. There's a Planning Commission hearing May 2nd, 2023, at which time the Planning Commission's recommendation was to continue the case to the June 6th meeting. There was another neighborhood meeting May 18th, and there was a second Planning Commission hearing on June 6th where their recommendation was for denial. A major concern of the neighborhood residents, that is the Riley's Acres folks who live out to the west of this, was the applicant's proposal to include concrete crushing operations on some of the industrial lots on the east side of the subdivision. The potential negative effects of such an operation, including the health effects of concrete dust, were points of testimony in the hearings and in the letters that are included in your packet. After the Planning Commission's denial recommendation at the June 6th meeting, the applicant proposed to eliminate concrete crushing as a use in the industrial lots. So that is reflected in the conditional overlay that you have in your packet for the industrial lots, that concrete crushing is specifically not allowed on those lots. Concrete crushing would not be allowed in the commercially zoned lots anyway, so it doesn't need to be included in that conditional overlay. There are also a couple of contingencies on this that we'll talk about in a moment here. The project representatives here are Lee Grossman from SWNL Attorneys, Trent Duda of ARD Properties, Nate Volmuth of Goldmark Design and Development, and Tony Uckel with MBN Engineering are with us this evening as our residents of the Riley's Acres ETJ, the City of Riley's Acres, and members of the Riley's Acres City Council. All of these attendees may wish to address the Commission. Commissioners, we're in a situation we don't get into very often here where there are actually two recommendations before you. The recommendations are shown on the screen and stated in your staff report. The Planning Commission's recommendation from the June 6th meeting is for denial, and the Planning Commission did make findings that supported their denial. Those are noted in your staff report. They felt that staff's findings were not sufficient to support approval. At the same time, staff does recommend approval as stated in here, partly because the situation has changed since the last Planning Commission and the concrete crushing has been eliminated. But our original recommendation was for approval to begin with. You will note there are a couple of conditions in there and contingencies in there. And what that means is if your commission would move to approve this today, those contingencies would have to be fulfilled before the plat could be recorded. This has to do with really the timing of getting the plat to the City Commission. And we did it in a shorter turnaround time than we normally do because the recommendation was for denial, but we still didn't have quite time to get everything done that we normally would do in relation to the developer's agreement and review of the plat. So this isn't the applicant didn't do anything wrong or there's no fault in it. It just, we crunched our timeline, and if there was going to be an approval, we just have to take care of these after. You've done these recommendations for approval or contingent approval before. So again, two recommendations on your screen there. That concludes staff's presentation. And again, we have, I believe, a number of testifiers here this afternoon, Commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to address us for rezoning?
Applicant? No.
I'm Trent Duda with ARD Properties.
Good afternoon. I'm Lee Gross with SWNL Attorneys. We're here to ask the City Commission to adopt the staff recommended motion The staff reviews of the application address what is legally required by the Land Development Code. And this is not simply about ARD properties building in this area. Multiple businesses could potentially build here, and if those businesses meet all the criteria for proposed zoning change and development, will they also be denied like ARD properties? The planning department staff twice has recommended approval and found that all criteria for the proposed zoning change and development were met. Many of the concerns that were raised at the planning commission meeting were about concrete crushing. That has since been removed. The staff report notes the residential protection standards are exceeded here because residential development of Riley's Acres is separated from non-residential development by a greater distance than what would trigger any RPS application. According to section 200704 subsection 2, all non-residential development, when such development occurs on site, is located within 150 feet of residential. That triggers the RPS application. In this instance, there's 280 feet of separation with buffering to mitigate commercial and industrial development, according to the staff report. Also, according to the staff report, there's a progressive step down in zoning. The industrial use on the east side of the subdivision, which is adjacent to I-29, steps down to commercial use on the west side of the subdivision, then the 280-foot undeveloped area, which is the buffer, and then the residential development on the west side of 45th Street. Construction already operates out of this area to the north of the property. In other parts of Fargo, Coast Materials has a concrete crushing operation west of I-29 and north of 40th Avenue South. And just to the west of this are apartment buildings, townhomes, and houses. Coast Materials was approved for this, I believe, within the last 10 years to operate a concrete crushing plant in the middle of Fargo. And what happens in this area when completely different businesses in completely different parts of town meet all the criteria? Will they again be denied? In the last 10 years, on the research that we did at my firm, we found only one time when the staff had recommended approval and the city commission denied it. That was back in 2015 on a project that was proposed west of I-29 and 98th Avenue South. Since 2015, obviously Fargo has grown in that direction and property has been developed in that particular area. According to the staff report, they noted the assumptions of the 2007 growth plan did not come to pass. Residential development in this part of town never took off as expected. Instead, residential development is occurring at a breakneck pace in south and southwest Fargo. Low-density residential development since 2007 has also evolved that it mainly takes place away from the interstate. And there is very little recent residential development along the interstate in the past 20 years. Concerns about the appearance of this area coming into Fargo from the north are exaggerated. On the east side of the interstate in this location are Amazon, Marvin Windows, several large industrial lots. I believe the commission approved an industrial lot in zoning just within the last month on the east side of the interstate. Also, this would be the only residential development along I-29 between Harwood and the apartment complexes south of 13th Avenue South. There's a letter from Riley's Acres from October 21st, 2020 that the commission has in its packet, and the plans for expansion of the contracting business by Earthworks Services Incorporated, Mr. Duda. According to the letter, this is a quote, his plans are to use the property for commercial and industrial uses that will include excavating sand and gravel and crushing concrete, beginning on site in spring 2021. The city of Riley's Acres supports this use of the property, end quote. At that time, Riley's Acres wanted to extend its ETJ over the property instead of Fargo with possible annexation. But since then, Fargo has annexed the property and now Riley's Acres is opposed. Riley's Acres was not concerned with the property values and possible negative health implications in October 2020. Here, ARD Properties has met all the criteria for development, twice. There is no sound reason why its application should not be approved. Any denial is arbitrary and capricious. It's not based on the development code. If you're going to ignore your own standards in the development code, then what signal are you sending to the other developers in town? Mr. Duda and I will gladly field any questions that the commission has.
Any questions, commissioners? Thank you for your explanation. Anybody else wishing to speak to this issue?
Hello, my name is Paula Peterson, and we are residents living in Prairie Estates on 45th Street North, directly across from the proposed Interstate Business District addition. Our addition compromises about 30 landowners who have acreage between 2 to 5 acre lots. We have a tax base to Reed Township of over $7 million. We were established in the early 70s, even before Riley's Acres, and we are now part of the ETJ to Riley's Acres. On behalf of our entire community, I'm here to outline the objections that residents, not only of the Riley's Acres ETJ area, but along with many residents of Riley's Acres, have in regard to the zoning proposals discussed. The zoning area we're discussing has always been agriculture. With it being recently annexed to the city of Fargo, the proposed changing in zoning present a very dramatic change for the entire community as a whole. The residents of the Prairie Estates and in Riley's Acres will have to look at and deal with the effects of whatever type of businesses that are in the above stated area. The current growth plan of 2007 has this area listed as proposed zoning of residential and a park. There must have been a good reason for that growth plan to list it as residential. Why? Because it is right next to an existing residential area and also borders NDSU crop research land along with the city of Riley's Acres. In the hearings held with the Planning Commission over the last several months, discussions and comments surrounded several key points, which resulted in the vote to deny these zoning amendments. This is a complex and unique situation. There are no good examples of where the city of Fargo has put in commercial and industrial zoning next to an existing residential area. It is important to consider what is the appropriate growth plan when you consider the existing community it borders. There are many reasons for the city to consider why this is not the right type of zoning for the neighborhood community. The city should not be afraid of leaving it to residential. Look at areas in Fargo, such as Fox Run, whose homes are closer to I-29 than this area would even be. And Fox Run was built after I-29 was already there. There are also areas on I-94 between I-29 and Veterans Boulevard where neighborhoods were built and border a current interstate. Based on the recent Fargo studies on housing needs, there is a large demand for housing, including the north side of Fargo. With large employers like the VA, NDSU, the Technology Park, Amazon, FedEx, and others, potential homeowners are looking for areas that they can enjoy space. There is also the question of the Fargo ETJ area to the north of Prairie Estates and the city of Riley's Acres, New Haven Division, and border residents of Lake Shore south of Harwood. If this zoning goes through, how will this change the proposed growth plan for 2007 from residential when you have commercial and industrial across the road? This zoning decision has a huge impact to everything, not only for where we are, but potentially to the north of us. Again, it is another deterrent to the entire surrounding community, which has to be considered, especially when there is no buffer between us. This also could mean more traffic concerns on 45th Street North for those of us that are residents. Developer and real estate representatives for the New Haven Division of Riley's Acres testified at the last Planning Commission as well that prospective homeowners are concerned about the potential zoning for this particular section and are having second thoughts in terms of purchasing lots. When it comes to the current zoning proposal, there is strong opposition for industrial development. This current means includes manufacturing and production. Through our discussions over the last several months, our voices have not been heard and no concession given to removing that type of zoning. Although the overlay has been amended to exclude the concrete crushing from any lot, the landowner has not indicated what his intentions are with the property. How many lots will he keep? What type of operations will he put in it for his existing business, which is earth-moving operations? How can we be assured that the conditional overlays that are in place proposed today will not be changed in the future? How will the permits be controlled to ensure we do not see something like an asphalt plant being put in here, or a trucking company that brings in hundreds of trucks in and out of our already crowded residential area? Earthworks has been stockpiling dirt on this property for over 2 years. Some days there are over 30 trucks coming in and dumping. And if you've ever heard a dump truck tailgate, it sounds like a shotgun. This small section of land does not warrant this type of zoning for this area, especially industrial, which is open to manufacturing and production. Fargo has industrial parks already zoned for these areas, which are on the east side of I-29, where there are no homes. They are along 19th Avenue North. They are along 12th Avenue North. There is no benefit to our existing surrounding community. The landowner knew this when he purchased this property, that it was originally zoned for residential development, and it was bordered by existing residential areas. How could you not think about the effect to the neighborhood or the people that would object to your proposal? When you consider this land section, what does the city of Fargo want people seeing when they come into the city of Fargo and the image that you want to portray? Another big concern of ours is how zoning will affect our home value. We are not convinced the research was done by planning to guarantee no negative effects on surrounding land values. In fact, it states that in the documents you have in your packet. When it comes to the impact on our neighborhood value, we have estimates that we will have a potential 25% decreased value in our homes. That represents over $1 million. How do we recoup what that means to us? It does not matter what the distance between our residential lots are and the proposed zoning area. We are currently in an open space. Today, there is no buffer, and a tree line will take over 15 years to develop to make a difference. Individuals that live across from this property and those that have to travel by day or see it from the I-29 bridge have to look at it from their property will be affected. The City of Riley's Acres has recently supported these concerns on behalf of their residents. However, we were not aware of anything that transpired previously, why those discussions happened, nor were we asked for our input. So we just want to make sure that that is well aware. Again, we ask you to consider, is this the type of zoning you would like to live next to? Would you like the noise or potential environmental effects or the negative effect on your property value? There are no currently good examples of where the City of Fargo has put this type of zoning next to residential. Again, we ask that this is an opportunity for the City of Fargo to consider doing the right thing for an existing community and be a good neighbor in terms of your growth planning. We look for you to take the time to consider this and hope your support in denial of this zoning amendment along with the revised staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? And I'd ask you to try to keep your speeches shorter than the last two have been, if you don't mind.
Good evening. Maria Goryacheva, Department of Chemical Engineering, UND. I would like to open my statement by posing two questions. Is there an explicit definition of what can be classified as a limited industrial manufacturing operation? Are there well-defined laws that allow regulation of such operations? The answer to both at this point is no. The term light industrial or limited industrial may sound as something that is eco-friendly, non-toxic, harmless, and that's something that can be potentially placed in a residential area. In truth, a harmless, industrially classified operation simply does not exist. By making this statement, I'm relying on my experience as a chemical engineer, as someone who handles chemicals and materials on a daily basis. I will state it again. There is no harmless, industrially classified operation. In the absence of laws and regulations, you would be surprised to find out how many manufacturing operations can be classified as limited industrial. We will look at the example that has been brought up recently, and that is a cement crushing operation. If I have to rank it, it would be on top of my list. It is an extremely dangerous production because it involves fugitive dust that you cannot control, and that is something that travels within a radius of 5 kilometers. I would also need to highlight something very important, is that my understanding that at no moment the applicant actually disclosed the hazards of the cement dust. I believe, and I may stay corrected if I'm wrong, that I was the one that brought it up within either the second or the third meeting. And okay, so I am actually right. So I would like, because I would like to address one of the comments that has been made by the applicant's lawyer, that at some point Riley's Acres approved it. I do not believe that the government of Riley's Acres at that point possessed the knowledge that allowed them to make the right decision. And that happened now in previous discussions, in previous meetings as well. As I stated earlier, there are so many operations that would be brought up in the future. For example, assembly of small electronics. It is, under certain circumstances, classified as limited industrial and actually can be placed nearby the residential area, despite the fact that it handles tons of materials that use lead and cadmium. Those have been studied for years, and they are known potent carcinogens. Today, I plead to your consciousness and morality to stay ahead of time, to look in the future, and to make the right decision that would benefit the people of Fargo and its future, even in the absence of laws and regulations. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Morell. I'm a North Dakota licensed physician, board certified radiologist. I also work here at the Veterans Hospital in Fargo, and I'm also the chairman of radiology for the University of North Dakota. At prior meetings, I had discussed the extremely dangerous health consequences of cement dust exposure, including multiple types of cancer. I now understand that the proprietor is pivoting toward other limited industrial options, following the unfavorable recommendations of the Fargo Planning Commission. To start, I want to echo the recommendations of the Fargo Planning Commission that limited industrial does not fit the future plans of this area. Fargo will undoubtedly be expanding to the northwest, and having limited industrial in this area will certainly be a blemish deterring residential and business growth. 45th Street North will be a gateway to that expansion. More importantly, I want to highlight the potential health consequences facing the citizens. If not cement dust, it should also be understood that nearly all industrial processes generate waste. This waste will cause environmental contamination in the neighboring area. Now, without specific details of what is planned, I cannot say for certain whether the risk will be higher or lower versus cement dust. What I can tell you is that risk will remain. It will be difficult to contain, to monitor, or to regulate. This risk cannot be sufficiently attenuated by a reduction in concentration. Let me say that again because that is not hyperbole. The risk will not be eliminated by a reduction in concentration. Why would that be? Well, the true issue here is duration of exposure. The people in this community will be exposed day after day, week after week, year after year. So even when exposure is very, very small, it accumulates over time. When will disease develop? May take 1 year, could take 5, could take 20. In my humble opinion, none of these timelines are acceptable. To the citizens who have their domiciles in the neighborhood, they are the proverbial rats in a cage. Most individuals don't appreciate the full impact of cancer, how often it actually occurs. I diagnose and monitor cancer on a daily basis and have personally seen several thousand cases. I can attest to the devastation it causes, the fallout, the bleakness. Our people do not deserve to live in fear of cancer or any other disease. What is legal and what is ethical are not always synonymous. To the committee, I would plead to your decency and your morality. Please do not endanger our citizens. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak?
Hello, my name is Kyla Dubord, and I'm also a resident of North 45th Street. I'm here today to share my voice to keep the current zoning as it is in line with the current 2007 growth plan. We understand in this area that growth will happen. Each of us probably have a different level of excitement about what that means because change is hard for everyone. But the current growth plan is the most compatible option with our existing zoning. You've heard that multiple times today of what is possible versus what is the most compatible. So one of my points is that this is the most compatible with us. It was created at a point in time where it made sense. Part of this too is also, if there is residential here, this can help with Fargo's need for housing. Again, my neighbor talked about that as well of, is there an opportunity to have folks that work at Marvin, Amazon? The area definitely has potential there. And the statement I made too is that there is no clear reason why it wouldn't work as it is today. So industrial next to residential, you probably heard a number of examples. All of these have been in the opposite order of operations than what this proposal is. And what I mean by that is a lot of these houses are built after the industrial is already there. Industrial Builders was a great example, and Goldenwood that was given, not today, but in previous ones too. When you build next to something that's industrial, you see it, you feel it, you know that you're building there. The expectation is set. I used to live in West Fargo by the fairgrounds. I had complete expectations set that I was gonna hear fireworks, racing, all of those different things. But our neighborhood has been around for over 50 years. And we have had the expectation that the growth plan next to us is residential and it's a park, which is really kind of cool. So many of us looked at the future growth plan when we purchased. I am one of those. I've been in the area for a little under 3 years. And part of my decision to move here is what is planned? What is the future of this area? What will my neighbors be? What will I have around me? It's kind of an exciting thing to learn about that. So a lot of the examples that have been given where industrial is next to residential, again, it's opposite. These people knew when they built what was happening. It's not the same as us having to have been here for over 50 years. A big kind of a summary on this is our concerns have been not seeing compatibility with manufacturing and production, so limited industrial in general. Concrete crushing definitely was our most concern, but limited industrial in general is not something that we feel that is compatible. The expected financial loss for this area is pretty deep. My neighbor Paula talked about that previously. I won't go into the numbers, but these are home values that we have a realtor who has stated that we could lose. Like, we will lose property value by doing nothing, by simply having our neighbors change. There has been no talk of mitigation of how 45th Street North is going to stay safe. It is a dirt road today. The designs talk about connecting up to it, and you will see that that's where our families are, our driveways connect up to it. There's been no mitigation plan to talk about the increased traffic or even the safety of that. The biggest point that I will nail for some of my neighbors who aren't here is what we decide for this will set the precedence for the ETJ that's above us. And that also brings in more complexity. It's the lakeshore area. So yeah, the ETJ is there. This is a first step of the concerns of us, where it's Riley's city, it's us as an ETJ, and it's Fargo. The neighborhood that sits on the north side of that, we have a buffer, right, as it's called. There's the drain, and that's where the next zoning happens. On the north side of that, there is no buffer. So it's also a complexity of how do you zone one area knowing it'll overflow to the other one. So that's why we're asking for, understand the complexity of what that is. It's not just a single decision on this piece, it's on all those that are related. Putting industrial into this little sliver, like that's surrounded by multiple areas, is something that just doesn't fit. It's like putting a square peg in a round hole. And if industrial is approved, we're aware that it is possible to remove some of those conditional overlays that protect us. It is also really hard to go back in zoning. So if it is moved as, or it's zoned as limited industrial, it's not really that easy to go back to something of general commercial. And so that would be more compatible for us. So on 6/6/23, the reason for denial was that it was inconsistent with the existing and future growth plans. It's not sufficient was the answer that was posted up there. I support that denial. My neighbors and I support that denial. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Donald, could you put the two motions up, please?
Yes, sir.
We're going to close public hearing and go on to, do I have a motion?
If I could ask a few questions of staff.
Sure.
So Donald, can you go back to the growth plan picture you had? Yeah, that one. The thing that's concerning me is that according to this growth plan, there's residential all the way around this neighborhood. Was there any discussion, and I know the Planning Commission denied this based on the fact that the growth plan amendment, there wasn't sufficient findings to make that amendment. Was there discussion about, and has there been any thought put into, what will the rest of that area look like? Are we talking industrial the whole way around?
Commissioner Preston, this is the 2007 growth plan. As you know, we are in the process of updating our overall growth plan. We haven't ever had any proposals up in this area for development. So I don't know that we had ever had any proposal to change this. And in terms of precedent setting, there's no requirement that this ever change, just because this is, that this got changed, there's no requirement to change that. But it would change the land use mix in that area, that's correct. And I don't know if Mr. Williams or Ms. Crutchfield had any additional thoughts on that? No?
Has there ever been any analysis of what the projections are for the need for industrial land inside city limits or as we grow?
I'm going to let Mr. Williams take that one on.
Mr. Chair, while he's coming up, can I just add something really quick? We just concluded our housing study that was just released, and it shows we need a lot of housing and all different kinds of housing. And so to me, for us to be talking about removing what we're talking about as potential housing sites for commercial, I think would be a big mistake at this point, especially what we just found. Thanks, Mark.
Sure. So the question was the consumption of industrial, and do we have?
How much, has there been any projection in regards to how much industrial land we truly need? And, I mean, are we talking industrial way up there, all the way around?
As Donald mentioned, we haven't had anybody approach us on the property west of 45th Street.
I guess I'm asking more, Mark, in regards to, has there been any analysis or projections for how much industrial land we truly need?
The 2007 growth plan looked at all the consumption based on the history of the city of Fargo.
Okay.
And that's where the 2007 growth plan map was created as far as land uses, in addition to the compatibility based on adjacent uses.
Okay.
Our current growth plan is going to be going through that. And, as you know, we're kind of in the beginning process of that. We're in the finding stage of that current growth plan.
So my concern, and if I can, sorry. My concern is that without looking at the bigger picture, you know, is this appropriate? This amendment, is it appropriate? So I think one other option we have here, and based on what the Planning Commission, the action they took, which was that the findings didn't support a growth plan amendment, that we send it back to them and have a conversation about what would we see going on up there?
I think the concern is, I think originally a lot of people were going to a crushing plant in Cost Brothers is by where I live, and we have concrete crushing right by neighborhoods. So I think initially the emphasis really got onto that issue. I think you've got some neighbors here get into the residential issue, which is, I'm not fully knowing if that was fully heard at the Planning Commission. But if we send it back to the Planning Commission, could you not redigest this and try to figure this out? Because it is a question, I think Commissioner Pipcorn makes a good point, is all we heard is housing. And Riley's Acre is a beautiful community. It's got a nice community up there. It's worked out really well. And many of those areas are areas people want to live in, those types of areas as well. So would it be just appropriate to send it back with planning, with special emphasis of our new growth plan? Does this make sense? And if it follows with our policies, I think the attorney has made some good points as well. As are we changing it just because the concrete crushing pad, but could you have other things that have more harm to the community or such?
Yeah, I would say since the proposal changed from Planning Commission denial to City Commission presentation, it seems like it'd be appropriate to send it back to Planning Commission to look at the new proposed change from the property owner.
Mr. Strand.
Thank you. I'm just curious, I know we're not through the journey yet, but does anybody have a sense of if the new growth plan, how it would address this area?
That's a good question. I know we've struggled internally and as applications have come in when there's been residential proposed adjacent to interstate. Once it gets constructed, then the neighborhoods come approach about sound barriers, and working with the DOT has been challenging in general just because of the noise that comes from the interstates. It'll be a good question as far as what the growth plan finds, as far as what our consumption is going to be and where should that be located in the future. And I think it's a little bit too early to be able to tell.
Bear with me, how soon would we expect that plan to be, relatively speaking, finalized?
February, March.
I think just some of the neighbors have to understand, we've had some neighborhoods come to us because of noise on the interstate and want a sound wall put up. So part of the commission is a little reluctant to do that. We put an apartment complex, they put in pine trees. And some people get a little bit concerned about the noise from the interstate, and or whether we like it or not, we have a lot more traffic than we ever had before. So part of the commission's reluctance to put a lot of residential right next to the interstate is a concern for the people that live next to the interstate. Is that sound going to be too loud for them? So sometimes commercial seems like a good alternative to that. But there also could be a mix in here that we could look at or do some things about. I think all we'd like to do is can the Planning Commission relook at it and take into the concerns we've heard tonight, and Riley's Acres as well, the mayor's here as well. Just can we hear them out and then try to come up with some recommendations? That be fair?
I think we would need a motion.
No. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we refer it back to the Planning Commission for a reconsideration.
I'll second.
Second. Further discussion? Commissioner Pipcorn?
So first of all, with the diversion, South Fargo is going to be growing tremendously. That's great. I think we should also be hoping that North Fargo grows tremendously as well. So that's part of it. When you talk about the sound, if you're moving in after the interstate's already there. And so people are going to know, and developers know how to handle sound, and we can participate or whatever. But I just think the other thing is Riley's Acres, those people, when they built out there, they knew they were taking a risk because they're not a part of the city of Fargo. However, we have to be good neighbors to them, and common sense says you can't put industrial right next to residential. We would never do that in the city of Fargo. And so to me, I think we need to, our goal should be, this should all be residential. On this side of the interstate, the other side is industrial, this side should be residential. I'm biased because I'm a North Fargo person. The North Fargo schools could use more population, and so there's a lot of ways that this would benefit North Fargo. So that's the way I would lean. I would lean to just say, there's no way we're gonna do industrial here. Everything on the left-hand side of the interstate, that should be residential. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Preston.
So one quick comment. I was here when the sound walls were requested for the 94 section of land. And yes, it took a good decade or so before that actually happened. But it happened. However, I have to say, I also understand there's concerns about any kind of residential alongside of an interstate. The impact of the noise on individuals' health, physical, mental, psychological health is not good either. So there's got to be something, a different mix perhaps, but perhaps not residential right up against the interstate either. So I understand that fully. Just would like the Planning Commission to take a look at the bigger picture here and try figure out whether, I mean, we don't want an isolated piece of industrial here if the rest of it actually ends up being something else.
Any other comments? Mr. Colpack.
Mr. Chair, I just want to, I certainly support sending this back to planning. I appreciate the time the staff has put in working with the developer. There is a concern about negotiating with the city of Fargo in good faith along the way, but my understanding is there was never a promise of the zoning change ultimately with the developer, and so, again, that's a risk. My last comment is never underestimate the power of public comments, because clearly at the Planning Commission meeting and at tonight's meeting, it's had an impact, so thank you for being here.
Donald
Can I
Chris.
just ask one question there? So, and as you send it back to, if your motion is to send it back to the Planning Commission for reconsideration, is there any specific direction beyond that, or just to take a look at the
I think the commission would like it to match up a little bit with the growth plan that now we're looking into. I think that
Yes.
Marcus said it may take till February. This might be an item that you need to look at a little more quickly to kind of get some answers for some people. But I think maybe the Planning Commission was a little focused on one item in particular, but there's a lot of different elements, as you know, in light industrial and general commercial and what that brings. But I think we have to, as we all know, you can oftentimes zone something, but what goes in there is not always what you thought would go in there, or public thought was going to go in there. So it may be to take the concerns of the public and into that consideration.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston.
Aye.
Colpack.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners.
42, we have a recommendation for appointment of the new city engineer. Brenda Derrick, are you going to bring that new city engineer up, or?
Well, I can if you'd like.
I think he should. The public has to see him. He can't hide back there all the time.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Upon my new appointment, we did start a national search for my replacement as city engineer. We had 4 applicants, 4 qualified applicants, and interviewed 3 of those 4 applicants. And the selection committee is recommending that Tom Nachmus be appointed the new city engineer. Tom has been with the city for 8 years now, and half of those have been as the assistant city engineer. And so I'm happy to be standing here and recommend the appointment to you.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments? Tom, congratulations. I think you do a great job. You have somebody who has quite a reputation to follow, but I feel you'll do an excellent job, and we're pleased to advance somebody from our department. You've done a great job up to this point, so disappoint us going forward, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Roll call vote.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Colpack.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. So I noticed, Brenda, you put yourself down for the bridge projects. I'm surprised Tom is going to do that. Oh, Jeremy's going to do it. Okay. Update on the federal aid road and bridge projects.
Good evening, Mayor Commissioners. What I should do is first order of business for Tom is to provide this update for you, but I'll let him off the hook now. This is going to be a quick intro or a quick item, just a brief update on what we're up to, where we're headed. No action needed tonight from you folks, just a simple update and ask any questions you'd like. So as always, our 8 pillars of our transportation system, long-range transportation plan is system safety, travel efficiency and reliability, walking and biking improvements, transit access, maintain transportation infrastructure, environmentally sustainable, economic development and transportation decisions, and emerging transportation trends. So there's really 3 projects that should grab your attention tonight. This is the first one, 64th Avenue interchange at I-29. We've been working towards an interchange here over the last, believe it or not, we had a corridor study that was completed in 2008. So, and I was here for that. So in 2019, DOT Central Office program $18 million for ramps to be added to this avenue in the year 2025. We constructed 1 mile east and 1 mile west on 64th Avenue. We bid it out in late 2020, and we completed it last fall. So you can go from east to west over the interstate. No ramps yet. So in preparation of the ramp construction in 2025, we did an RFP, hired a consulting firm to complete the environmental portion of the project and the design, slated to be under construction in 2025. They are still on board in the preliminary stages of their work. So Brendel received a letter early May, mid-May about the funding for the interchange project in 2025, and that the DOT feels that due to inflation pressures and other projects around the state, they're going to move this money from here, and the earliest they would bring it back would be 2028.
Can we protest that? What are the options to protest that? As I look at the traffic counts from South Fargo right now, it's moving up. 52nd Avenue is getting quite a bit of traffic in the morning. And we're going to have Horace as it expands as well and different projects going forward. If we wanted to protest that, pulling that from 25, what are our avenues if we so desired?
I think one of the best options would be for you to contact the Transportation Commissioner. Just have a discussion, just to see what's going on with the funding, when can we expect.
And how much of the 18 million is federal?
The thing about this project is it is all their project. It's 90% federal, 10% state. There's actually no city funds.
So if we
attached
find
to the
more, if we would find more federal funding for it, or Commissioner Strand has brought grants into us and showed us some grants. If we found the money somewhere else, Jeremy, is that, so you say we visit with them on that issue?
Yeah, I think a simple conversation, just to, I mean, we need to tell them what we're still serious about constructing this one day.
Okay.
Because with the traffic projections down south and the denser we're developing, you really need an interchange every mile in an urban area. So this is really the biggest project for you guys to be aware of. The North Broadway Bridge. Currently, our bridge demolition project is about halfway. They got started in the spring, and they planned to break when the flood came and the ground melted, or the ground thawed out. They're about halfway done. They plan to be back by late summer, early fall to finish up their work. So last fall, you guys remember, Mayor and Commissioners, we programmed additional money for the replacement of the bridge, just as a placeholder, and we promised we're going to do further examination to come back for decision.
Mr. Strand.
Jeremy, I'm just curious, with that bridge currently out of commission and in fact being demolished, what are we seeing as far as traffic changes since that bridge is no longer available to the traveling public?
To be honest, we did do some counts a year and a half ago when it was first closed. I could dig those up and provide those.
It'd probably be prudent to gauge what's changed and how it's affecting people.
Yeah.
Post no bridge.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd also like to contact that neighborhood and ask them how they're enjoying the tremendous amount of traffic going through their neighborhood. It's a huge impact. So I'd like to do a traffic count there too. And we've also talked to Clay County. They're interested in participating in the replacement of the bridge and also the diversion. There is potential there down the road with that. And so it wouldn't be just us funding it. There's a lot of other potential people that are interested in participating. Thank you.
So the good news is Houston Engineering is just kicking off their feasibility study. There's going to be a traffic aspect of it. There's going to be cost of construction to it. And they're going to be back to us real quick. They're planning on coming back in late September. So we're bringing this to the forefront. It's going to come to a head here, November, December timeframe.
Commissioner Strand.
Bear with me, but will that also include hydrology studies with the model where it's at the current level and another model out of the floodway?
Yep. They've got hydraulic staff working on it. They got bridge designers. They got traffic folks, and I forgot the last one. But they're fully engaged, and we're ready to get an answer to this. So when MetroCog solicits their annual projects this fall, we're going to want to say go or no go on this project once and for all. We've been talking about this for quite a bit, so that's what we're setting the stage for.
Again, on this, when you're saying funding, is it 90% federal, 10%, or is this all local?
No, this is, it's basically split, we'll call it 60-40 with us in Minnesota. We've got more costs because we're going to have to do some road repairs if we move forward. But it's the 80-20 federal split on our side. In Minnesota, still has to find the state aid money for it. They don't have money for it yet.
And Commissioner Strand, just to be clear, Clay County will participate on it as it is at level. It drops from like 6 million to 20 million. They won't participate in it. They can't get the funding for the larger amount. So.
Yep, that's right.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Preston.
could I just clarify, Jeremy, what did you say about federal aid participation in the bridge?
Well, on our side, so on these bi-state, it's usually 50-50 split. You know, Moorhead or Clay County finds their 50%.
Right, it's 60-40.
So on our side, we've got penciled in, I think, 5.4 million federal and probably 2 million local. So we're pretty close. I mean, minus the engineering admin, we're pretty close to 80-20.
Okay.
On the current estimate, but I would imagine they're going to go up. So those are the kind of the two bigger projects to talk about. And then just the other federal aid projects we got starting here shortly. 52nd Avenue, west of 63rd Street, going into West Fargo. That's bid, and it's ready to be closed here around Labor Day to tear out the bridge and redo the bridge and widen it by quite a bit. That'll be completed by the end of next year. And additional projects bidding out this fall. The big one would be 32nd Avenue South. The remaining portion from where they stopped this year all the way to the Red River. We've got the carbon reduction project on the streetlight fixtures, replacing 1,000 fixtures. In Mayor, I got the cost estimate savings, $75,000 a year for the 1,000 fixtures. And then two path projects. The Bison Village is behind the wastewater treatment plant. And along Hackberry Drive from Harwood Drive down to 35th Avenue South. And then the 42nd Street Bridge Maintenance Project over I-94.
And Jeremy, Commissioner Strand, they had a sustainability committee. And John, I think you saw these savings going to LED are, I thought for the city, almost $200,000 a year. Is that
Really
correct?
substantial.
Yes. So it really saves us to go to LED. Just the public should know that it costs us to replace the LED. And this part you're doing, the 1,000 is 75,000 a year, but the energy costs are tremendous.
Yeah, useless trivia for you. There's over 16,000 streetlight fixtures in town.
Okay.
Just remember that.
Commissioner Strand.
Bear with me. If we're lowering the cost for streetlights, will we lower the burden that we tax the people to subsidize them? Because I think I heard earlier we're talking about an increase in streetlight fees. Just a thought.
That's that's usually about $1 million in energy costs for our department. In that department, streetlight, traffic control device utility, that's a mouthful. That budget is $3.5 million. So the $1 million goes to the straight up electricity, $2.5 million goes for staff, repair projects, a lot of it miscellaneous. We're looking to increase that to add striping in there. We spend about $1.5 million in striping annually just to maintain what we have. So
I guess the answer is no, John. I think he's going up.
I think so.
So I'll continue. I got to tell you guys, in all the time I've been here, 20 years, this is the most federal aid projects we've had on the books to move through, bid out, and construct. So it's fun, but there's a lot to it. So in 2024, 2025, bridge maintenance on the frontage road by Fleet Farm, and then 3 path projects, River Drive, finishing off the Hackberry down to 40th Avenue South, the extension of the Milwaukee Trail into the Timberline area, and then the Red River Trail behind the VA. And then the third project I wanted to tell you guys about was Main Avenue pushed back to 2026. So the remaining portion of Main Avenue that hasn't been reconstructed in the metro, we're going to push it 2 more years down the road. And really the main reason is the environmental document went from a categorical exclusion to an environmental assessment. So they're really unearthing everything and anything under the sun, really digging into the details of what would happen with the street reconstruction. And really, there's going to be some kind of right-of-way acquisition out there. As to who that's going to be, we're not certain. But those take a lot of time in a commercial stretch of road. You need to acquire them. You need to relocate them. They have to be open by the time you're open at a different location when you start digging in front of their old location. So it just takes time. This project has gone to $41 million estimated. It's an incredible amount of money for less than a mile of road. So we got to do some requests for proposals for help for us. The first one would be the 12th Avenue North Bridge over the Red River. The mayor's favorite, to do an environmental and design. 17th Avenue South, that was plugged in for money in 2027 from University to 25th. We have 2 intersections that we're going to use some federal aid on some safety improvements, and then that Fleet Farm frontage road bridge project. So collectively, 16 projects there we went through, and totaling over $100 million in total project costs. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Preston?
Couple of questions. One is, your first slide showed basically some of the concepts or tenets of the transportation plan. I don't think we've seen that yet. When is that coming?
So this is from MetroCog's long-range plan.
Yeah.
The Fargo transportation plan, we're diligently working on that. You should be seeing something, today's July, probably in September, October.
Okay. Second question is, and this one might be more for Tom, in regards to, I can't remember the actual number there, Jeremy. It was 100 and some million in federal
113,
projects. The long-range financial funding aspect of all of these, where are we with? I know you have a consultant, I think, that you're working with to try to project funding sources, and where is that?
What we're looking at right now with the consultant is really looking at pavement and how to maintain our pavement
It's just
system.
payment? Okay.
Yep, over the long term. But we are also working internally on a more long-term capital improvement plan that would also cover the duration of projects that Jeremy just discussed.
And the time frame of actually seeing that?
So I have been working pretty hard on that for the last year, and part of that would be part of this, later this year when we present the 2024 CIP, we'd also be looking at that longer term at that point.
Sounds good.
Mr. Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. Jeremy, you mentioned that there's all this federal funding, and then we already have a North Fargo bridge that's being demolished because it was in disrepair and not safe. We're seeing examples across the country like the I-35 bridge collapsing with people driving over it. And we're hearing the conversation everywhere about the infrastructure needs. And on the other side of that, we have more money than we've ever fathomed. How is this coming to us? Are we finding it, or are they coming to us? Is there money in them hills we're not finding yet and we should go after? Because this is a moment in time of this federal largesse that's there. And if we don't go after it now, are we missing any? Is there, should we put more focus on getting more of these grants and federal fundings? I just sense there's communities and cities out there that are just making hay while the sun is shining with this.
Well, I will say there's the annual obligation that all the states and the federal highway work from. But there are new grant opportunities, you're right, that are coming in at least monthly. Where like we get informed from the state DOT, the folks that are in charge that really see the grants from federal highway. And they created a website for all the grant opportunities it's really from local municipalities, tribes, urban, rural, and state on a variety of projects. But there's a lot to them. Economic development is one of the main drivers of the projects they want to fund. Like the one we just saw last week was rural, urban, or mega multimodal improvements. 3 different funding buckets. But it's really focused for rail and you got to do a cost benefit analysis for some of these projects. In our cost benefit would be next to nothing compared to the big metros. So there's a lot of projects out there, but they're difficult to weed through and to figure out which ones would work for us.
Meanwhile, any bridges needing repair, we need to highlight that.
Correct. So say, for example, like if there is let's just say there's a bridge bucket out of the new funding plan. Again, it goes back to the cost benefit and the economic advantages. So like just in the region here, 12th Avenue North, 15th Avenue North over the red, that's higher on the cost benefit because there's a lot more users than in North Broadway. It's really tricky to figure out these big federal grant programs, though.
Thank you for the report. Any other questions? No?
Thank you.
All right.
Do you have a motion to item 44 applications of property tax exemptions and improvements made to building? Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? Roll call vote.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Colpack?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Shelley, I'm sorry it's really gone long tonight. Should we take a little break before the liaison reports, or should we keep going? Okay, Pipcorn.
No report.
Commissioner Preston.
I'll keep this really short, if you could pull up the slide here. Continuing to do a report on the national meetings I was at. Missing middle housing is the piece that I want to just cover very briefly tonight. Next slide, please. So the missing middle housing, which is a big piece of probably what the housing study is going to be showing us, is any building type that exists between detached single-family dwellings and those large apartment complexes. So we're talking, and if you go down further on the third bullet point, rented and owned dwellings, including ADUs, which are the accessory dwelling units, the granny flats, basically, row houses, 4, 6, 8 plexus, small apartment buildings, those kinds of things. So that's what we're talking about with missing middle. AARP has gotten into this. They have a report called Discovering and Developing Missing Middle Housing. Their interest truly is in aging in place concept. So they're getting into the game as well. Benefits with addressing this missing middle piece is certainly affordability. And we're all identifying that as being an issue. Housing is becoming less and less affordable. And then the whole issue of smart land use with increased density. Go to the next slide. There's some policy issues that are related to this whole spectrum of housing. Zoning, single-family zoning, residential zoning. Some of the cities are actually removing or at least increasing the kind of residential that can happen, and removing the exclusive single-family zoning. Parking requirements is an issue, financing issues. And then one of the things that was interesting in the meeting, they had a panel of developers that were in this particular kind of development. And there's really obstacles that they deal with. A lot of these individuals were faith-based kind of organizations. They're very mission-driven. So we may have to deal with an issue of developer capacity here in town. We don't really have developers that are doing this right now. And how can we as a city kind of help remove some of the obstacles or even provide some assistance, whether that be with city-owned land? One of the things that Great Bend, Indiana is actually one of the cities that was talked about a lot. They have some pre-approved building plans, so it becomes easier for a small developer to just walk in and say, this is what I'm going to do, go for it, kind of thing. So some of those kinds of obstacles we could probably take a look at trying to remove. And I think that's it. Yep.
Thank you. The finance team's working real hard on the budget. I want to do a shout out to all my department heads that have really helped us to try to do this budget. We have our challenges this year, but everybody's rolled their sleeves up and tried to find ways in which, one, they could decrease expenses, and two, if we could find some revenue, we could find it. But at 4th of July traditionally is a week that most people take off, and I think half the team worked the week basically to catch up and get us back where we need to be. But just want to do a shout out to them. Thank you. Mr.
I
Kolpak.
just have one slide and an additional quick update on mosquitoes. So to your opening comment, Mayor, the work has officially begun on Fire Station number 8. The foundation's been excavated and forms for the foundation have been set and some concrete has been poured. And then unfortunately, the 4th of July was a very busy week for the fire department with 23 fires in the first 7 days. 18 dumpster or trash fires, 2 vehicle fires, 2 building fires, and 1 grass fire. Most of those attributable to the improper disposal of fireworks. And mosquito numbers jumped over the weekend, so July 11th will be rural spraying and July 12th will be metro spraying. And those are my updates.
Just on your fireworks question, I just want the public to know that the police department was busy looking at firework complaints, and if you didn't get caught up that night, people were busy doing other things. But the difficulty with fireworks, the public has to understand, is by the time you get there, it's done, and oftentimes people are gone, so there's nobody to arrest or to give them, what is it, Chief, $100 fine?
I'm not sure if it's a citation.
Okay. It's a fine, and he has to observe you doing the fireworks, so it's a difficult area to enforce, but the team was out there, so if you think they didn't come in time, they're busy with other things. Mr. Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. The only report I have is, besides us all having, not cupcakes, but we had donuts for your birthday. We can maybe do something for Commissioner Preston's birthday on the 15th. So happy early birthday to you. That's my report.
Thanks, John. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.